Before we get started with today's episode of the podcast, I want to take a minute to tell you about a free masterclass for dance teachers I have coming up soon. The NeuroFlex Masterclass, Identifying the Missing Link in Your Dancer's Flexibility, is happening Sunday, August 10th. The nervous system is queen when it comes to the body. It controls our ability to see, think, feel, breathe, and move. This means it also controls our flexibility and mobility. Nervous system dysregulation is one of the biggest factors that limits a dancer's mobility that most dance teachers miss. In this masterclass, you'll learn about the link between the nervous system and mobility and how to harness the power of the nervous system to help improve your dancer's flexibility. I would love to have you join me on Sunday, August 10th. So for more information and to save your free spot in the masterclass now, go to www.allegroperformance.com/masterclass. And now, here's today's episode. Hello, and welcome to the Dance Physio Podcast, a podcast designed to explore ideas and foster discussion around dancer health and wellness. We're here to challenge the status quo, bridge the gap between dance science and the studio, and help change the landscape of the dance industry for the better. I'm your host, Erica Mayall, a dancer turned physiotherapist who is deeply passionate about leaving the dance world better than I found it. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dance Physio Podcast. I am your host, Erica Mayall, and today we have a guest episode for you. I am joined by Samuel Downing, and Samuel is a hybrid dance conditioning and safe stretch coach with a background in professional dance, and he's also the author of the bestsellers, The Little Book of Stretches and The Little Book of Strength, which, if you haven't seen them, they are great little resource books for dancers and teachers. Samuel is passionate about athleticism connected to artistry with methods that are safe and proven to help create champion dancers with long careers in an encouraging way. As an ex-professional dancer, he knows the demands that dance has on bodies and strives to educate and improve a dancer's body awareness. Samuel trains some of the UK and Europe's best young dancers, promoting the hashtag Dance Smarter approach alongside his wife, master dance educator and influencer, Rosina Andrews, who's actually been on the podcast previously. So if you have not listened to that episode, it is episode 74. Go back and listen to that one as well. His approach is education first, working on weaknesses second, and then building up to a dancer's goals. Samuel helps young dancers continue to grow and perform in a more optimum way whilst combining safe, structured conditioning and stretch with biomechanical instruction of movement patterns. From having a multifaceted fitness career in the heart of London and with the ever-growing demand for supplementary cross-training, one of the positives of lockdown a few years back was his exposure to online training. And he's fortunate enough to now fully focus online teaching of dancers and teachers around the world. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me.
So anytime I have guests on the podcast, I love to just start by asking kind of what your earliest memories of dance are, or how your sort of journey in the dance world started. Can you just take us back to the beginning?
Yeah. So I was 6 years old and I was that keen little boy dancing in front of the TV. In the UK, we had this TV show called Top the Pops. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, I haven't.
It was basically like a music video, like a kind of a UK version of MTV, where they had a live studio audience where they zoom in music videos and they had like live artists perform. So like the UK pop bands like Britney Spears obviously American, but Britney Spears was on the show. Like Steps was the UK band. I'm trying to think of the bands now. So Five, etc. like that. So I would dance in front of the TV. So my mom was like, "Oh, we need to get you into dance classes because obviously you're constantly dancing around the house. Obviously get rid of all my energy that I used to have." So she signed me up to a local dance school, which was actually one of the really good ones in my local area, which I'm really proud of. They studied under the British Ballet Organisation, so BBO, similar to like ICD or RAD.
Yeah.
And then I did all the exams from like pre-primary all the way up to intermediate. From there, I gained experience like doing amateur theatre groups as well, because I was pushed into like different avenues as well to explore. Fortunately, in the local talent was really quite high within my area, so a lot of them went on to West End or music videos. So I had lots of aspirations around me, which is really great to see, especially in the boys as well. So I was like, in my dance school, I was the only boy in my class. So then when I got into these amateur groups, there was other boys like to be around with and gain experience from, which is really cool. And then from there, I auditioned into theatre school in London. So went to London Studio Centre, studied 3 years there, doing the BA honours, and then came out obviously with my degree, and then went straight into pantomimes. It's a UK thing, I think.
We actually do have them here, but it's like much less of a thing. We kind of have, the traditional Christmas pantomime, and that's kind of it. But yeah.
And then fortunately, I was actually got to star in the kind of off West End pantomime in London with the likes of Pamela Anderson and a few other UK famous actors as well, which is quite a cool thing to do. So once that happened, I then went into TV commercials, some McDonald's adverts, some well-known like British television company adverts as well, and then just worked my way through different jobs. From there, Rosina and I then would start to think about how can we like develop our skills a little bit more, and also like get more varied teaching. Rosina loved to travel with her parents, which is quite cool. So I went tagged along a few holidays, and we actually ended up in New York City at one holiday. So we went along to Broadway Dance Center, and they had a visa student program. So we're like, oh, this is perfect. So that year we saved up our money, and then we packed up our bags, we stopped all our jobs, and then moved to New York for a year. That was when we danced our heart out, literally 20 classes a week, no stress of finding work or earning money. So everything was all prepaid for, because we had to save up like a bunch of money for it, for the visa. And then that's why I found my love for fitness. So I ran in the Central Park. I did all the free coupons that I could do in the newspapers, all the different gym classes I could do. Because back then, if you didn't have a security code, you could have a full-time gym membership. So, and there wasn't gym pass or class pass or like, boutique gyms. They weren't there at that point. So I did all the free stuff that I could.
Yeah.
And then when it was our time to come back, I was like, oh, I don't really want to. I think I found my closure in dance, as in I was at the best physique wise, and also the best I could be. But I think the dread of coming back to the UK and like auditioning in that scene, I didn't want to do that. So that was like, I closed that door for myself. And likewise with Rosina as well. So she wanted to be a bit more educational. So we came back. Again, unfortunately, my mother-in-law owns a performing arts school. So she gave us the opportunity to like learn how to teach. So we watched her classes. Rosina was a teacher, like she taught already throughout the school. So again, I watched her classes, then I was able to take on my own classes. And then alongside that, I was working in the fitness industry. So I gained a level 2 qualification, which gave me entry into being a fitness instructor. Like you said, multifaceted. I literally worked every single job apart from being a cleaner and a general manager. Literally, I did every single job that I could do in a gym just to get some work and experience, which was great. So I learned from an array of people. From there, when I gained my level 3, that's when I started to do some more personal training elements, especially like bringing it back into the dance studio. So I wanted that, obviously still had a passion for dance. And then I wanted to, kind of give it back to my students as well in that sense. That's when Rosina and I created our like extension program, bit more. So aside from the main school, we made a competition team. That's why I actually made a conditioning class. So that was the first time I had a conditioning class within the school, which is quite cool.
Very cool.
And from there, it's gained my experience. The more qualifications I did within the gym facility, the more I brought into the studio and tried it out with the kids, make sure it was safe, make sure it's productive, make sure it actually worked, and also help them with their dancing. So, yeah. And then awesome. I think, like you said about the lockdown, it was a positive for me. I was able to quit my full-time job and then focus more on the online training, and then coming across like people like yourself, where I could learn a little bit more as well from the Instagram, the free webinars and the masterclasses that were going on. I literally was like a sponge. I was like in lockdown. I was like, I've got to fill my time either working myself or like trying to study a little bit more. So, and that's where I really pushed it as well.
Yeah. And I think that was, one of maybe the only positive thing that came out of lockdown is I do think there was so many more online opportunities, and a lot of people like yourself like really took advantage of, connecting more with people online and utilizing those resources, and especially like dance teachers and people who are not necessarily in big urban centers with a lot of access to those, all of a sudden it was like, oh, now I can, expand my training or just get exposure to different styles and things like that. So that was very, very cool. Yeah. A few things that I would love to unpack from your story. I'm curious. So you were sort of saying like when you moved to New York, that was when you kind of discovered fitness and found fitness. But I'm just curious because I think we're, maybe of the same generation-ish. Yes, and I'm curious if there was any sort of like strength and conditioning or any of that built into any of your training up until that point. Because I know for me personally, that wasn't something that was like in my dance studio. We did maybe, in a jazz tech class, there might have been like, okay, we're going to do some push-ups and like sort of a little bit of that. But in terms of actually having, or even recognizing the importance of, but certainly having any sort of structured, like kind of strength and conditioning class, like that really wasn't sort of foundational as like part of my training back at that time. And I'm curious, like if you had come across that in the UK at the time, or even when you moved to New York, if it was sort of part of that program, or if it was just you finding fitness outside of the studio and being like, wait a second, I actually really enjoy this.
Yeah. So I think my first introduction to a gym per se was in the university I went to. They had a gym on site, which was great. However, like the induction from the ballet master, the main guy who did all the pas de deux stuff, was like, here's the gym. This is what I can lift. See, you can lift the same. He showed us a few exercises, a chest press, probably a shoulder press, obviously for the pas de deux element. And then for the girls, it was like, here's the cross trainer. And literally that was it. We were like, okay, great. Then you will find like most of us in the gym before classes started at 9 on the cross trainer trying to get our cardio up. And that was it. Or like the boys do some shoulder presses. And that was about it. I did actually find myself in my second year, I did actually get myself a personal trainer myself. So I did actually get a gym membership because I knew I needed to be stronger. I think personally for myself, I always knew I was a kind of a weaker in terms of the pas de deux because I never had that experience during my dance training as a part-time student. I was in like after school because I was mostly focused on the girls. I was the one on the side saying, okay, Sam, what arm can you do? We'll do this arm. I was like the second thought in that sense, which I understood, like as in now I understand it. But I think at the time I just went with it and didn't really think about it. So it wasn't really an obvious thing for me. Like, oh, why am I so different in that sense?
Right.
So I got myself personal training in the second year. And then I thought, oh, I can now do it myself. I had him for about 6 months, learned a few things about, kind of muscle endurance training. So he was educating me in that sense. Nothing to do with like cardio or plyometrics or anything like I like to focus on myself. It was purely strength training because he thought I wanted to have the physique, for a dancer. Yeah. Didn't really talk about nutrition. That wasn't his side. I probably had to pay extra if I wanted to on that.
Right.
So I didn't really think about that cost. I thought I was doing well on my nutrition. And then after that, again, I was left to my own devices. And ironically, I didn't like the gym. I actually hated the gym because obviously I wasn't in a dance class. I wasn't surrounded by girls. It was literally like, typical London gyms were like very grungy. And so, yeah, it weren't very nice. When it came to my experience in New York, yes, there was an element, like you said, in the jazz tech classes where they do some abs, their push-ups. I think the fitness element came from kind of the cardio endurance of it, because obviously their classes were longer than a traditional UK class. So in UK, it was like an hour class, say in Pineapple or Danceworks. I don't know if you've heard those studios before.
Yeah.
In London. But as Border said, they were like an hour and 15 or an hour and a half. So we were like,
okay, interesting.
Are we need done it? Oh, well, we just done the warm up, and we're like, oh my god, this is The first week for me and Rosie, we were shocked. We were like, whoa, this is a lot. But then you get used to it. You get the stamina, don't you? The stamina builds up, and then I think from there, like I said, I had spare time, so that's when I found the running, found the fitness classes to make sure I complemented what I did in the classes. For me, I love the teachers in New York who were very anatomical. I think that's where I got the whole PT side of it and wanted to explore the fitness side of it. So they were very, especially the jazz and contemporary, not so much the ballet teachers, but they were more focused on the imagery like they would just traditionally. So the contemporary classes I took were very anatomical. Gyrotonics was really kicking off in New York at the time, I believe. And hence...
Interesting,
some of those teachers brought that into their classes, which benefited it. So
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think that's like, as far as I'm aware, like a fairly typical story in terms of like people from your generation or my generation, where it was often noticing that there was maybe a lack of something, whether it was stamina or whether it was strength for like, partnering or things like that. And then being like, I should maybe try and sort of do something about this, but really having like kind of no direction in terms of there being people who were super knowledgeable about maybe what the requirements for dance were or that type of thing. And so I think your story is probably like similar to a lot of people will resonate with that story in terms of probably what their experience was of having to like sort of figure it out for themselves. I will say, I think along with what we were talking about in terms of the positives of lockdown, of people just being able to, connect and learn more online, there's also then just been a massive increase in the level of awareness of people. Like I think dancers or the dance industry in general is so much more educated than it was even 10 or 15 years ago. And like, obviously things have been gradually progressing over the last, 25 years or whatever. But I think there was just an explosion in the amount of knowledge and understanding that people had during COVID. And so now, at least where I am, I would like to think or like to say that like, I think the average dancer understands and knows the importance of conditioning and strength training and cardio and things like that. I still don't necessarily see it really well integrated and implemented into programming all of the time. Some places are doing a great job with it, some places not so much. But in terms of like the understanding of it, I think is much more, it's much further ahead than it was previously when you were sort of just like, oh, well, maybe I should go for a run since I'm dying after the warm up in this class. And so kind of having to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I totally agree. You may know that Rosina and I, we tour with like the UK and internationally doing workshops, and we visit these studios. So we go into their home studios, and like I do always question, like, I do always ask the students in front of me, like, so what type of conditioning do you do? Like, what's it like? So I get an idea of where they're at in terms of their base level and what I could do with them or to help them, rather than like give them something really, really hard and then they die after 5 minutes, or like ease them into it, depending how much knowledge they have. And yeah, there's hit and miss. There's some students who are really well at it, like, especially if they're acro based or gymnastics based, they also added the conditioning side of it. And then, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we obviously probably quite similarly, like there's sort of a variety in what we see. What I see really commonly in studios in my area is they have maybe recognized the importance of having some sort of a like kind of, they'll call it a strength and conditioning class. But when you actually are like, oh, like what are we doing in this class? Or you sit in and observe it or whatever, it's, maybe a little bit more of like a stretching class, or like it's often there's not a lot of strength or conditioning. I mean, maybe the conditioning side, maybe a little bit, but in terms of strength work, I think sometimes in the studio setting, people are sort of missing the mark a little bit. I don't know if you kind of see that as well in terms of, it's perhaps become a bit trendy for studios to advertise that they're offering this because, again, parents and dancers and everybody are really knowledgeable now and know that that should be part of a dancer's training. But then when you actually kind of break it down and look at it, I'm like, I'm not sure that this class would qualify as strength and conditioning when you actually look at what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like there are some studios who are obviously nailing it. They might have an ex-student who's a PT now and they come in. And I'm so glad to see as well. And obviously when I go into their studios as well, and I feel like, oh, you've actually benefited, which is pretty cool. Now, Rosina and I have been doing our teacher's course for about, say, 5 to 6 years running straight. And when we visit those studios, we see the kids actually benefiting from what they've learned with us, or the importance. Like, when they sometimes read what you're saying back to you, it's like, oh my God, they're actually listening. Thank goodness. But no, like I say, when you see the variety of the studios, they may be doing a body conditioning class, but it could be just a circuit class that they've put on some music, or doing the kids getting burpees for hours and hours and hours, or the plank challenge is quite popular, isn't it? That goes around the circuit. You're like, why are they doing a plank? Is it really going to help them, or
how does that translate directly into dance movements?
Yeah, like how's it going to help? For sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that comes down to as well, like dance teachers have such a difficult job because obviously you're having to teach the technique, you're having to teach the artistry, you're having to manage kids' like emotions and feelings and raise them to be good humans and all of these things. And then all of a sudden it's like the industry is like, oh, and dancers also need supplementary training. And so it kind of, I think a lot of times gets thrown on the teachers, which I personally think is maybe not fair or realistic because a lot of teachers, like that is not their training. And, some teachers absolutely genuinely really love it and have gone out and done extra qualifications and stuff. But a lot of teachers are like, I want to choreograph things. I am a dance teacher. And so they're more interested potentially in the artistic side or the technique side or what have you. And so I think that is part of it as well. And so the studios in my area that do it really, really well, like you were saying, they often bring in external people or like maybe they have an ex-student who has then gone on to do qualifications. And so they have somebody who like that is their passion or their like kind of zone of genius and they're the one running the program. And then it can be really effective. Whereas when you have a teacher who all of a sudden they have this class that's like thrown into their schedule and they're like, well, I'm just going to teach them what I learned back when I was a dancer because I don't know any differently. Then sometimes I think things get lost in translation a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, we do. We're quite fortunate in the studio, obviously Rosina's mom's studio, that we have a wide faculty. And I think since myself, Myra, Rosina, we like to travel and educate ourselves. We go to LA quite often and do the dance teacher conferences there. And we all say to ourselves, like, okay, let's hire experts in things that we can't do. So if we can't do hip hop, let's hire a hip hop expert. If we can't do a contemporary that we want to, like a Horton contemporary, let's hire an expert to come in. So we were very lucky in our studio to have our own building as well and have like 11 faculty members for like a 7-day week schedule for the part-time students, which is quite cool. And then when we do our teachers conferences or intensives, we try to push that on them, not push them, but like suggest, like if you can't do it, like you said, if you're struggling with fitting everything, all those different styles of teaching you've got to do, the tap, the ballet, the modern, the baby ballet, the adult, the advanced ballet, get someone else if you can to add in another class, so then you can add, give yourself a little bit of relief for sure, definitely. If you can't hire an expert, why do it yourself? Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Just switching gears a teeny bit. I'm curious. I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that you work mostly with sort of younger and adolescent dancers, which is similar to what my caseload in the clinic is kind of a lot of the pre-professional or competitive dancers and things like that. And I'm curious just in the work you do, especially because you are traveling around to different studios, but even with the dancers you work with individually, if there's sort of trends that you notice in terms of where dancers are lacking in terms of the kind of like, conditioning side of things. Like I know for me in the clinic, oftentimes it is strength is a big one, obviously. Cardiovascular fitness is often a really big one as well. But the dancers, when they come into the clinic and we talk about goals and why they're there and, almost always their goals have to do with flexibility. But when we actually look at just like basic movement patterns, I'm like, I'm not that sure that that's where we need to start. But I'm curious because you are traveling around more and seeing sort of maybe like a wider variety of dancers, what you're noticing kind of trend wise with dancers nowadays.
Yeah. Like you said, the goals that most dancers come in with is flexibility. They want to get their back catches, right? The backs is another goal, and also turnout and feet. That's their main goals that I get to hear about. But obviously, when you do break it down or have that dancer in front of you, you do your like postural analysis and movement patterns. Then you're thinking, oh, there's lots of weaknesses, especially in their hips, and then proprioception in the actual body as well. So yes, they may stand in front of a mirror, but they actually know exactly where they're putting their body. It's quite funny. Obviously, I don't know if the audience knows that Rosina and I, we have a daughter too. She's just turned 2 and she does baby ballet. And now we're finding her that she's actually using her hands to move her feet into that first position. It's like, oh my goodness. Okay. So she thinks she has to have that flat turned out, but actually she can't control her body yet. Right.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm not trying to help her, but she's very good at squat jumping because she's seen our classes. But yeah, so even then, from that age, they think they have to have that perfect position, but they don't know how to get their body into that position. And then finding, the students that I have, balance and coordination, like I said, awareness of the body, posture, core control is obviously a big one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that's sort of what I see in the clinic as well. And I think In some ways, I've seen changes over the course of my career a little bit, in that some of the younger dancers nowadays, I do think, like you said, they have this sort of ideal in their head of what they should be able to do, and less of an idea of like how to organize their body to do it. And I suspect, and obviously I don't know that there's research to back this up, but I suspect that some of that is they have so much more access to like dance media and things, and even like filming themselves. Like 20 years ago when I first started practicing, like dancers filming themselves in the studio was not a thing. Whereas now, like the dancers are constantly getting feedback of themselves, or they're able to just watch other dancers on social media or on YouTube, and whether it's professionals or whether it's other dancers their age and stuff. And previously, I don't think dancers had access to that as much. So there was maybe more of an internal focus on themselves and like what their body was doing. And now it is this kind of external, like they know what the picture's meant to look like, but then being able to, organize their body or have the proprioception to be able to do that sometimes is lacking. So I find oftentimes we really have to pull back and go to like very, very basic, just, kind of more body awareness type things to then have a good foundation to build from, and then be able to do the incredible tricks and, artistry that they are capable of.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree, especially when they do so much as well. So like a variety of styles, not just do the ballet class. They do the tap, the ballet, contemporary, hip hop, commercial, which is obviously slightly different to hip hop. And obviously the competing as well a lot. I have some students who compete near enough every single weekend. Yeah. Students that travel to like an intensive, then go back to their school to do rehearsal, which is like for obviously, American, well, I don't know, in England, we don't travel too much, if that makes sense, because obviously we think that the distance is too far. So like a 3-hour drive is a long way, but because it covers a long distance. But I don't know if in Canada, is that a short distance for you guys, a 3-hour drive, or?
I think it depends where you are. Like where we are in Vancouver, I think people would think 3 hours is long because you can't really get anywhere in 3 hours because we're surrounded by water a little bit. But when I lived in Ontario for 4 years for my undergrad, and like people would drive 3 hours. Yeah. Like no problem, because 3 hours from Toronto, you can get to a lot of different places. And so I think, but I do know what you mean, because I think in the US, people will travel like, to 2 states over. They'll go, like a 6-hour drive to a competition is not considered a big deal for a lot of people in America. Yeah. Like they're much more willing to drive long distances. I think it's a little bit less like that where we are in Vancouver, but yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So also it depends where you are. I find that my northern dancers, like they go anywhere. They'll go anywhere. Like say if they've got a mid associates in the morning, they'll go back to the dance hall for rehearsal, or they'll go on to another competition, which I find mad, because obviously the dancers I work with, they would never do that. They don't do one thing a day. Yeah, I think it's down to the dance too.
And I think it's also just expectations. When you live in a smaller or more remote community, you expect that you have to travel for things. And when you're in like a big urban center, then you're like, no, everything will come to me. So therefore I'll do like one thing or whatever. So I do think that plays into it as well. Yeah. Just kind of coming back to sort of like the conditioning and what we're seeing in dancers and like working with dancers. How do I want to phrase this question? I'm curious what the buy-in, I guess, is maybe the best way of putting this, with the dancers that you work with, whether they are like really keen and sort of embracing it, or is it more something that they approach with I just like have to do this because my studio's put this in the schedule, or like, where do you sort of find that dancers are sitting on that topic?
Right. Good topic. I think there's a few different mindsets that go on. Obviously, the class that I teach myself on my own studio, I think their buy-in is that I don't know. I think it's because we've done it for so long now, 10 plus years, that it's a given.
They don't know any different.
Yeah, it's normal. It's normal. It's part of our schedule. Especially if you do the competition team, you have to do our competition classes plus the mandatory other classes during the week, like the ballet, the tap, modern, to actually have a position in the team. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that's written in their contract. They have to do that if they want to be in like a competition team. So I think they come in. Yeah, they come in full of energy. There was, it's like any time you're teaching teens, you have to give them the energy to have the reciprocation, isn't it? Right? Yeah. If I'm like bored and disengaged, like they're going to be bored and disengaged too. So I'm like, okay, guys, it's 9:30. Let's do it. Let's go for it. we're going to focus on X, Y, Z today. I think I also like to change up my programs a lot. I do like kind of cycle them as well. So they say do 1 week plyometrics, 1 week core, 1 week balance, and then just rotate them on that. So they have an improvement at the end of the term, rather than always doing like the same class every single week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So for me, I think it's different from a syllabus class rather than, in that sense. In terms of like my one-to-one clients, I think it depends where it's come from. Is it come from I'm not going to say it, a pushy mother who wants them to win those gold medals, and they've been pushed into me. So then they do sometimes come disengaged, but hopefully, like, I think the way that I approach my sessions, that I win them over in terms of like seeing the benefits, or
mm-hmm.
like, we'll try a few exercises 1 week, then go back to it, reflect on it, and say, I love the option of a screen record on my computer now, especially on Zooms and stuff like that. I do a lot of screen records. I play it back to them. We talk through their corrections, or like, how can you see your knee like bending in on that squat jump? How can you make it better? So I think they like the visual reward as well, like you said about the whole video themselves.
Yeah, I think that's like, they're very used to that sort of like instantaneous feedback and visual. Yeah.
And then on the flip side, obviously, I've done my studio, I've done one-to-one clients. I think because I teach 2 other schools online, like obviously online. So I'm zoomed into their studio. Yeah. They are engaged. They definitely I think it's benefit because of their teachers in the room too, helping me like coach someone.
Correct.
So if I spot someone who's doing something wrong, say, oh, can you go over there and help them with this position? Or I shout their name or their colour at the top if I can't see them properly from the screen. Yeah. So I like that. I like having the teacher in the room helping me, assisting me in that sense, so that we're all supported. And I think they benefit that in terms of like, because they're in a very small town. They've got me coming from London, which is like, oh my God, Sam's with a different accent, zoomed in from London. So I think they're used to that now in that sense. But no, it's definitely, I can tell when a student doesn't want to do it or has a bad day. So obviously I add in a little bit of mindset into that as well, like talking them through it. How's your day? How are you? Rather than like talking about the dancing all the time. I think sometimes it could be like another thing that they want to talk about rather than, I always find it's quite funny when I have a client, say 5 years, and I see them every week on a Monday, and then they come to a random open workshop that we do, and they get so shy. They get so shy with me. They're like, but we talk about everything and anything. Just to get them through the session or like make them interested in the session. And they're like, oh, well, I can't talk to him because everybody else is here. So it's quite funny. Or, another thing is that my clients do guess my height. They want to know how tall I am.
That's so funny. But little things like that, just to like relate. Absolutely. And I think one like super important point to highlight there is that, like you said, like when the teachers are in the room, especially if you're doing something like virtually, but even if you're not doing it virtually, just having them in the room, like obviously helpful for corrections and hands-on and whatever, but it also shows the students that the teachers value and understand the importance of it. And it just creates that culture of like, this is something that is important. This is not just like, a checkbox we are ticking or that type of thing. And I think it really just like speaks to studio culture of how like either the studio owner or the teachers like in the studio actually also embrace and sort of like, embrace health and wellness. And so I see that a lot as well, like, cause I do workshops at studios and stuff. And the studios where like the teachers are engaged, they sit in on the session, like they're, asking the students questions or whatever. The students are also by default way more engaged than, the places that sometimes I'll go into and they just like give me a code to the door and you walk into like a room of kids who've never met you before and they're just like, do the session and we'll e-transfer you after. You're like, okay.
Oh my God, and like, I've happened to us before. Like, okay, here's the key. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, well, where, are the parents going to pick them up? Like, where's the first aid?
Yeah.
Where's
Exactly. Crazy, and like in those situations, I do think like the students pick up on that. They kind of see it again then as something that's like, oh, well, this is just something like we have to do. And they're not going to be as engaged or embrace it as much or understand sort of the importance of it. I think the other thing too, that is like kind of important to highlight is, especially with the dancers that you like, like you said, you've been doing it for 10 years. I'm sure they also, like, you get more buy-in because they see the effect and the improvement that it has on their dancing. And so it's hard if it's like a one-off workshop or something when the students are like, this is really hard work. And, you know, they're just like feeling a little bit like lost or unsure or whatever. But when you have dancers, again, who are doing the work consistently, they will see how that influences and improves their dancing. And then that is the ultimate buy-in, I think. Like, that is the dancers that I have who are so keen to come and like work and put in the work. It's because they've seen how it improves their dancing, not because of anything that like their teacher said they should do it or their parents said they should do it or whatever. It's like they will actually say, you know, I feel stronger. I can, you know, do more turns, whatever it is that's like their goals in dance. So I think that requires a little bit of consistency, because something that I see here, and I don't know if you experience it as much where you are, is studios will bring in people for sort of these like one-off workshops sometimes. And that's like great that they're starting to open that conversation, recognizing that it's like something that is important. But I don't think it's as effective as if we can like embed it in the structure of the program where it is like a continuous thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I guess it's always down to resources as well, isn't it? How much they can get the person to come in. I know Rosina's done a few series workshops with some studios. So they go in and have her on, like, say, once a month or every other 2 months, like a rolling thing. Yeah, I think for me, like you said, it's about the byproducts, isn't it? So if you have, say, fortunate for us, like our team, they always do a warm up together, like whilst we're doing the registration, like one of the seniors would lead the warm up, who most probably have been one of our assistants. So when we do our workshops, we don't just take me and Rosina. We always try and bring an assistant who's going to be inspiring for the students in the workshop, which is obviously the byproducts. And obviously when they see them doing my conditioning exercises so effectively or so well, it's like, if you were guys, especially for the students who are like, I'm going to audition next year for college, where should I go? I say, okay, wait, let's do a conditioning first and let's see how that goes, you know? I was like, you know, if you want to go to college, this is what you got to do. You got to do this stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious, just because, again, like over the last few years, there's been like a huge proliferation of information for dancers in the dance world, and that like trickles down to dance conditioning and things like that as well. And I'm curious if your approach to how you work with dancers has changed like at all since you like first got introduced to fitness stuff, where you were kind of just winging it and, you know, on your own, versus like, you know, kind of what you're finding is like the most effective or the most important aspects of how it is that you're working with dancers.
I think what's good with me, I still have my toes dipped in the fitness world. So I still work in a fitness studio just in the mornings, like it's a global name. It's called F45. I don't know if you have that in Canada.
We absolutely do.
But I coach in 2 studios in central London. So I'm still dipping my toes in there. And obviously I get upskilled every so often and through those facilities. Obviously I can't always bring it into the dance studio straight away, because obviously the machinery or the equipment that they may have. However, that like upskilling makes me want to upskill myself as well in my own like passionate life, as in doing the personal training for dancers. So like doing courses like with yourself or other people, or even just reading books and stuff, and trying to keep myself up to date with the latest like knowledge that's going around, or the change of like the pattern of like, you know, from the first aid element, you know, where the whole like arise goes into peace and love, right? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that change, if I didn't know that from social media or like yourself posting, I wouldn't have known that. So because that's not been delivered in the UK yet, or like, you know, or filtered down to me in that sense and that level.
Yeah.
So I do always like to upskill myself in that. And then I think educational wise, I always think about, you know, giving the dancers more a relevant perspective of what they want to do. So if they do want to go professionally, you know, telling them to like go down a certain route in terms of like, you know, working their body in a certain way. So in that sense, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that's a super valid point too, because the physical demands of dance have increased. Like it's, you know, no secret that what the dancers are expected to be able to do now is definitely more difficult than it was like, you know, a generation ago even. And so if dancers do want to sort of go down that professional route and make it, like we do have to facilitate that for them simply like doing classes like maybe you could get away with a generation ago, where all you did was your studio classes and you know, gained enough skill to be able to make it in the professional world. That's not necessarily accurate anymore, just with like, the physical demands of what these dancers are doing. And so their training programs, and whether that's supplementary, like strength and conditioning, or even some of the, like you kind of alluded to super briefly, like nutrition and things like that, like all of that has to keep pace with, exactly, with just like how physically demanding dance is, because it's not the same as it was when like you or I were dancing. It's definitely more physically demanding now.
Definitely, because I think for myself, before I went to college, I literally just did my normal classes, and then 2 nights a week doing the amateur group, which is obviously not conditioning. It's more about musical theatre and how to develop my craft in that, like the acting side of it. And then I did 1 half an hour private lesson singing. That's all I did, like in the week. And I didn't dance 7 days a week either, or 6 days a week. I did 3 nights, I think it was, a Monday, a Thursday, and a Friday. That's what I did. Isn't that just crazy? So
yeah.
But now, and to think that, you know, some youngest, like I have like clients youngest 9, 10 who have me once a week, so 55 minutes a week, and then they have obviously other private lessons to go with their solos and the competition dances. It's just mad, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, there's probably a conversation to be had around that in terms of like, especially some of those young kids maybe like doing more than is like necessary. But I think when we're talking about, especially those dancers who are maybe at the point in their career where they're looking to like transition to professional dance, or to like kind of, you know, the later teen years, or getting into kind of like the young adulthood, in those cases, like we really do need to meet them where they need to be from like a physical perspective. And that at this point has to include some amount of kind of supplementary conditioning stuff, because the physical demands are so high.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Just quickly, because I'm aware of the time and I don't want to keep you for too long, but quickly, you sort of like alluded to or sort of mentioned briefly, but I would love to just chat about it a tiny bit more. You were a participant in the Flexibility Foundations program, I believe round 3. I've lost track of what round we were on now. And I'm just, for our audience, because there's another round coming up, and I always like to get sort of like firsthand experiences from other people who've participated in. And I'm just curious if you could just tell us a tiny bit about how that program may be influenced, or if it did change. And it may not have. I have lots of people that come through the program who it almost just reinforces the way that they're training, as opposed to like kind of changing their entire paradigm or whatever. But I would love it if you would just tell us a tiny bit about how you've been able to incorporate that into the work that you do.
Definitely. I think it definitely reinforced what I was doing already. Because I think from what we previously said about the lockdown, how I researched a little bit more when I came across your profile, obviously learned a lot of your webinars that you did. I think it's reaffirmed like more in depth as well, like going through all the different nervous system elements, also the different techniques that you gave us as well, especially like all the breathing techniques that we had, and the different like skin types as well to help with these different stretches. So it's about like kind of the, you know, when working on say a one-to-one level for myself, it really helped me understand like, okay, this dancer is not similar to this dancer. It's very, you know, very different in that way. How can I use the same kind of method in her stretching to help improve the stretch? So rather than like, you know, having a bog standard stretch to make sure that she goes through. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely helped me. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I think it definitely helped me like reaffirm, and then obviously like a little bit more further education down the line of the stretching and the more like the nervous system side of it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely, there's like the theory component. And for some teachers, it's really new information. And for other people like yourself, it's probably more of like a review or just more in-depth knowledge about it. But I think that's a great point, that a lot of times it is just like really simple tweaks that you can make to like one dancer versus the other in the studio, so that they're not doing the exact same thing, because one dancer might need something that's just really slightly different, or the way they approach a stretch, or the way they approach like a mobility exercise. And you don't have to like completely reinvent the wheel, but if you can kind of tweak something a little bit for them and their body and what they need, it makes a huge difference in terms of like the output or the results that you're getting in through there as well. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I always like to finish off these episodes with 5 sort of like rapid fire questions. They're not overly rapid fire, but if you are willing to play along, I would love to get your take on these 5 questions.
Go for it.
All right. Number 1, what is your favorite genre or style of dance?
Oh, it has to be musical theatre. I do love a show. I do love going to the West End with Rosina and seeing a show, especially with a student or a graduate or someone we've taught at some point.
Is in it.
Even if we did like a workshop, they did a workshop with us, or like a few small lessons, or they came to our summer school. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm so jealous that you guys have access to that so easy. That's the one thing in Vancouver we don't have really much in the way of musical theater, and I absolutely love a good musical as well. So, would you rather be on the stage or in the studio?
Oh, I'm torn. I mean, I perform at home now. But no, I think I like the stage. Yeah, I do like to perform. Rosina always says that I'm going to have a comeback one day.
Yeah. Your second career.
Second life, yeah.
Yeah. If you could dance with or share the stage with any dancer, past or present, who would it be and why?
Oh, gosh, this is a real hard... I've thought about this long and hard. I still don't have an answer for you in this one. Because if I went really niche, you guys would know who I'm talking about.
Fair.
Or I don't know.
You can go niche, that's fine.
I don't know. I'm not going to say. Do you know what? I'll say Rosina. I'll dance with Rosina. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. We did. Have you guys?
Sorry? I was just going to ask if you guys ever performed together.
We performed on a student platform at BDC, which is still on YouTube if you want to research it.
All right. I will not put that link in the show notes, just, but people can go and look that up themselves.
The rehearsal period was torturous. She definitely tore me to shreds in that sense. I'm definitely a follower in that sense. You tell me what to do, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Don't come up with any creative style on that one for myself.
Fair enough. All right. Question 4. What's one thing you would go back and tell your younger self as a dancer?
To read more in terms of strength conditioning, for sure, definitely. I would like to tell myself at 18 years old don't listen to this guy in the gym, go to a proper gym. I don't know, was Larbin around at that point in 2006? Yeah, in terms of the science department. Science department? Yeah, maybe go down on the Piccadilly line, or Jubilee line, and go to Larbin. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And then last question, if there was one thing you could change about the dance world, what would it be?
I would say always be willing to learn, because I feel from my experience from being a dancer, graduating and then taking class, then to being in the fitness industry, I feel that in the fitness industry for myself, everyone loves to learn or take advice from different people, whether you're 6 months in and you're training as qualified or 3 years, 5 years. Everyone likes to learn in the fitness industry. And I feel some teachers, some parents, some people are very close-minded in the dance industry. So they need to open up a little bit, especially the traditional elements like we've talked about previously in your episodes. I feel that they need to, get with the times a little bit. It's 2025. Yeah. We need to move on.
I notice that same, and we talk about it all the time, but within just the physio world versus the dance world, it's, I see that same thing. Within the physio world, there's so much collaboration in terms of even clinics that are on the same block, sharing resources and practitioners. And there's a lot of communication and collaboration. And we often see each other as all part of the same community with the greater good of helping, people with their health and wellness or whatever. And in the dance industry, we don't always see that. There are certainly studios that are absolutely promoting that type of thing. But a lot of times there is a little bit more of a insulated sort of feeling where it's studios almost feel like they're in their own silo and stuff. And I do think, we could just benefit so much more from way more open dialogue and sharing of resources and communication and stuff. So I could not agree with that more. I think that's a really, really great point. So finally, just before we sign off, if listeners want to get a hold of you or learn more about you, what's the best way to reach you?
So my Instagram and Facebook handle is Samuel Downing PT, all one word. You can find me on my website, so www.samueldowning.com, which obviously has all about my approach, my online sessions, my online classes. So I do a virtual class weekly, so people around the world can Zoom in if they wish on UK time, obviously.
Yeah.
And also it gets pre-recorded as well. Oh, it gets recorded, so you can have it like another day to have in your schedule. Like you've mentioned before, I have 2 books under my belt. A little book stretches and a little book of strength, which is obviously a little guide for teachers and students to have a resource. It's more of a picture book, Rosina describes it as. But you can flick around. There's about 150 stretches and strength exercises with videos to accommodate as well. So then you can obviously pick what you want to do. There's actually some color coordinates on the side of the pages.
I love the color tabs on the side. They're great. So you can kind of pick a body part if you're like, I want to do something lower body or whatever. And then you can kind of flip through the book and find the little color coordinated tabs. It's great.
I've had some really great feedback from teachers who've used that in their classes. So when they've had, they want to do, like, say, more like a low body dance session in terms of like the grounding, they get their students to flick and get the page number, little, what's the word? Where you flick it and you stop on the page, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, like the
like a Russian, like a thing, isn't it?
Like a Rolodex-y type, like
yes. Yeah, that's it. So they pick and choose, what they want to do, or you can follow like a regime, like if you pick like all the purple, all the orange, etc. Yeah, so that's how you can find me.
Perfect. I will put all of those links in the show notes for anyone who wants to reach out. And is there anything else that we've missed chatting about, or anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we sign off?
No, it's been great chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know this is your Friday evening currently, so I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And thank you to everyone out there who is listening as well. I really appreciate your support. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.